I'm beginning with, or ending perhaps with Senate Bill 75, which expands the definition of violent felonies in state law to include the additional crimes that many Californians consider to be serious and violent in nature. California voters, as you know, recently passed Proposition 57, which makes offenders eligible for early parole and eventual release from state prison. Dangerous criminals, such as those committing crimes such as rape by intoxication, rape of an unconscious person, crimes against children, will now potentially be released from prison early and therefore be eligible for parole. This puts the public safety in communities up and down California at greater risk. Victims of these crimes continue to relive their horrific memories of what has been done to them. They would no longer have that peace of mind that their perpetrator is paying the price, and instead they are again on the streets with the potential to victimize someone else before justice has been served. An offender charged with human trafficking involving a minor should not deserve a shorter sentence to be released into our communities, only to again prey on another innocent victim. Proposition 57, misleading on several fronts, needs further clarification to ensure that crimes deemed non-serious and non-violent in nature are in fact truly that. SB 75 expands the violent felony definition to include 20 additional crimes, and I am aware that some may disagree with the number of crimes I have included in this bill. I am willing to work with the committee to narrow the list while at the same time ensuring serious crimes of a violent nature, such as assault with a deadly weapon, arson, rape of an unconscious person, and crimes such as that are not eligible under Prop 57 for early release. I have with me today Dawn Freshner, who is a former parole agent and the mother of 3 from Orange County, to testify in support. In addition, SB 75 has received support from the LA Deputy Sheriff's Association, the Police Protective League, California Police Chiefs, PORAC, League of California Cities, and many others. So I look forward to your questions and will respectfully ask for your aye vote following the presentation. Dawn.
Go ahead, witnesses in support.
Thank you, members, for allowing me to come and speak today, and thank you, Senator Bates, for asking me to come up here and share my experiences and my opinion on this Senate bill. As she stated, I am here just as a mother of 3. I'm actually just a constituent, but prior to staying home with my 3 children, I was a parole agent with CDCR, and for almost 10 years of my 14 years of state service, I supervised a second strike or caseload, meaning that all of the parolees on my caseload had already been convicted of 2 or more serious and or violent felonies. So over the years, I obviously supervised thousands of parolees, and after a bit of time, you become very versed in figuring out what their triggers are and what their motivations are. Parolees that are prone to violence are master manipulators. These are individuals that choose to go out and violently assault and sexually assault other people with little or no remorse for their actions. That is a fallacy amongst people that don't work with this community. Most of them do not have any remorse. You know, when Prop 57 came along, it guaranteed voters that it was only going to apply to non-violent felonies, but what it failed to explain to voters is that there are many felonies that are very violent in nature, but they're defined as serious in the California Penal Code as opposed to violent. So I'd kind of like to explain to you how this is going to play out in the reality of the California prison sentence system. Sorry about that. So because almost all inmates will now be eligible for earning good time credits or work time credits for their participation in and completion of rehabilitation programs and education programs, everybody's in prison is going to be signing up to participating in these programs, and that's going to translate to long wait times. The inmates that have been convicted of the crimes being addressed in 75 are already going to have had their sentences dramatically reduced because of the bill's effect on consecutive sentences, enhancements, and prior strikes, thus limiting their access to participation in the programs in prison with the long wait times. Therefore, the whole supposed reason for the proposition, the rehabilitation of inmates, is circumvented by the fact that they're going to have little access to these programs because their sentences have already been shortened. They're going to be released before they even get to participate in any programs, or they're going to have only been in them for a short period of time to reap the benefits of it. Another rather misleading claim of Prop 57 was that it was going to save the state tens of millions of dollars. Yet the entire budget analysis fails to even take into account the return to prison of many of these inmates. I know based on my experience, and we know from the statistics, that many of these individuals are coming back. The CDCR research shows us that 48.4% of individuals convicted of serious felonies, not violent felonies, not non-serious, non-violent felonies, but serious felonies, the ones that we're talking about in Senate Bill 75, those guys are coming back 48.4% to prison with a new commitment. So all we're doing is letting them out of prison earlier to commit more violent crime. And I understand that Governor Brown did not intend for Prop 75 to apply to sex offenders, but his intention is irrelevant because the initiative guarantees the benefit of Prop 57 to many sex offenders. So assuming that CDCR is going to enact rules to exclude sex offenders is irresponsible, because if they enact those rules, they're going to be violating the law, they're going to be sued, and they're going to lose. Well, finally, one of the most disturbing parts of the passage of Prop 57 is the effect that it's going to have on the community. We're going to have a lot of violent parolees being released from prison early. Where do they go? They go back to the communities where they came from. Poor communities, communities that are already ravaged by violent crime, and they are the ones that have to suffer exponentially more. They go back into their own neighborhoods to terrorize, threaten, violently assault, rape, and molest the people in their neighborhoods. So if Senate Bill 75 doesn't pass, the victims of these new crimes that are affected are the ones that have to pay the price. They're women, they're children, they're mentally disabled people. They shouldn't have to pay the price for the inaction of legislators that should know what's going to happen when these violent inmates are released. So I'm asking you to please minimize the amount of victims that is surely going to increase by reclassifying these crimes. I'm respectfully asking for your support of Senate Bill 75. Thank you.
Do we have additional witnesses in support?
Chair and members, Tim Cromartie on behalf of the League of California Cities in support of this measure. It addresses a concern that was raised during the campaign on Prop 57, which pertains to the fact that the current violent felony statute is relatively finite, and there's a whole lot of conduct that the ordinary person would probably consider violent, that is by default nonviolent and therefore eligible for enhanced parole opportunity. So we're in support of this measure.
Thank you.
Brian Lundgren on behalf of the Orange County Board of Supervisors in support.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, members Dawn Kapke, McHugh Kapke and Associates on behalf of Crime Victims United also in support.
Thank you. Additional witnesses in support? Witnesses in opposition?
Good morning, Mr. Chair, members. Micah Doctoroff on behalf of the ACLU of California here in regretful opposition to SB 75. Without commenting on the potential seriousness of the crimes at issue in this bill, we believe that existing penalties are already sufficient. Many of these crimes carry significant punishments as it is, and many of them are further enhanced by other existing enhancements already. The broader application of the enhancement at issue in this bill will not further protect public safety. It will only add to our existing overcrowding problems. Research has consistently shown that longer sentences do not serve as a deterrent. It's really the fact that there will be a punishment that serves as a deterrent to the extent that these sentences deter at all. So we believe that this is unnecessary. Lastly, I would say the voters have already decided on Prop 57. They heard many of the same arguments that were raised today, and even in the face of these arguments, the voters still chose to pass that proposition, and we don't want to take back what the voters have already decided here in California. Thank you.
Khalif Asagay on behalf of the California Public Defenders Association, also in respectful opposition to this measure. This bill's essential effect will be longer sentences, more prison time for individuals who commit crimes. This sounds good, but it's been proven that longer sentences are not a greater deterrent and, in fact, increase recidivism in the state of California. We want a system where people actually come out of the prison system reformed, rehabilitated, and improved. And under this bill, extending the time that people are in prison is only going to reduce the incentive to take advantage of rehabilitation programs and other programs that might address their issues and allow them to return to society as better people. We have a choice. Clearly, we've chosen to put people in jail, but we have a better choice and a more important choice to decide how they come out. And longer prison sentences, less incentive for rehabilitation is going to produce worse results for public safety when these individuals return to society. And for that reason, we are opposed to this measure.
Thank you. Jim Lindberg on behalf of the Friends Committee on Legislation of California, also in respectful opposition to this bill. I'll associate myself with the previous remarks, but would just like to stress that we are still under federal court order to reduce our prison population. And while we have met the current targets, CDCR's own population projections show that the population is slated to start rising again. We think that if we're ever going to get control of our prison system again from the federal courts, then it's incumbent upon the legislature to not start ratcheting up penalties again. We have very strong experience with this in the 80s and 90s. The legislature and voters all passed numerous sentencing enhancements. The result of that was extremely overcrowded prisons without any commensurate reduction in crime rates. And for those reasons, we are in opposition. Thank you.
Thank you. Additional witnesses in opposition?
Andrea Richardson with Legal Services for Prisoners with Children, and we oppose the bill.
Sandra Johnson with All of Us or None, and I oppose the bill.
Jenny Kogan, Community Mental Health Worker, I oppose the bill.
Edilberto Flores from the Youth Justice Coalition, and I oppose this bill. And one thing I want to say is that my auntie served 13 years in the state prison in Chinchilla, and when she came out back to society, she didn't come out like the way how everybody else, as this lady was saying, as they come out back violent and everything. She came back with this community, and she has served her community, and she came back to her children. And so towards there's many inmates that are coming out there with extreme sentencings, they want to come back to their families. Thank you.
Vanessa De Leon with the Youth Justice Coalition in opposition to this bill.
Yvette Ale, Los Angeles stakeholder, neighborhood council board member, and budget advocate for South Los Angeles, one of the communities that are impoverished that would be greatly affected. I am in opposition to this.
Hello, Amber Rose Howard, community member from the Inland Empire, in strong opposition of this.
Thank you very much. Senator Mitchell.
Yes, thank you. I want some clarification either from the author or committee staff. It's my understanding that the current regulations that are being drafted to operationalize Prop 57 include excluding sex offenders. So if someone could provide that clarity for me.
That's correct.
So given that, tell me the purpose then of this bill. Does it conflict? What's your intent?
My understanding is that through regulation, you're affecting a voter-approved measure. To change it, it has to be by statute, and that's why you have seen a number of bills come forward in the Assembly and certainly here on the Senate side that would actually affect not the proposition itself, but the definitions that are contained in the two penal codes. Penal Code 667.5C is what defines violent offenses, and my bill is asserting that these offenses, or a number of them, we have 20, I said we could narrow, need to be put into 667.5, and then you're not affecting the intent of Prop 57. Through regulation, you could be, because it's a voter-approved measure.
Okay, and so staff has just advised me, and perhaps we can get further clarification, that the actual language in the proposition says that it could be done through regulation, correct or not?
Requires CDCR to promulgate regulations.
I think that's being challenged by the Legislative Analyst's Office, and that's what this concern is about a lawsuit affecting the whole measure. And I think that needs to be taken into consideration. Passing a statute, I think, provides the protection to what the voters asked for in Prop 57. And based on the number of bills that are before us and the input from our constituents who became aware that a number of these felonies that we are talking about are serious, are actually very violent acts. And that's the reason you're seeing a number come through. I've just bundled them all together. Certainly I'm, once again, I'm very open to narrowing mine and discussing with some of the other authors what is probably most acceptable. It doesn't seem to me that ongoing corporal punishment of a child, that's child abuse. That person shouldn't get, a reduced sentence. And I'd like to comment on the discussion about enhancement. This bill is not about enhancement. This bill is about keeping people who've already been convicted, who've already received their sentences, and under the law at that time, they got enhancements. This does not change that. It just changes, it removes, it takes current serious felonies that have a violent nature and puts them into the penal code for violent felony or crime.
Senator Mitchell.
I'm sorry, I had a follow-up question, if you don't mind. Mr. Chair, thank you. And thank you for sharing your perspective, Senator Bates. And I wonder then, based on your comments, since there are a number of bills that are coming through the process, and I know the legislature has done it in the past, if the committee has considered perhaps public safety committee on either side holding them all, and so we can then have a informed strategic conversation about what the legislature's approach should be all at once versus the Assembly passing some of these bills out, the Senate doing the same. And my third and final comment, really just I was struck, quite frankly, by some of the comments of the witness. And I hear, I am concerned when I hear career professional parole agents, probation officers make very generalized comments about our offender population, referring to them, quote, all as master manipulators. And I wonder what role perhaps implicit bias plays in that perception. While I completely respect and honor your career and your perspective, to make those generalized statements I think is not helpful in our effort to really try to peel back and develop policy that is appropriate, that is timely, and is helpful not only to public safety, but deals realistically with the offender population. And so that, when I hear that in this committee often, it just gives me cause for pause, because I wonder, I have difficulty believing that we can make a generalized statement that refers to all offenders. And I just think it's troubling in the context of trying to craft intricate, important public safety, public policy. So thank you very much.
Thank you. I think there's a couple interesting tidbits that came out through the testimony. And when I review this, I don't think that when people voted for Prop 57, they anticipated raping of an unconscious person, human trafficking involving sex acts with a child, or attempting to explode a bomb at a hospital, school, or place of worship are considered nonviolent. And I think that there's a tremendous need for this bill, because if you do it administratively, it can be challenged in the courts. This falls completely within our authority to redefine these as violent crimes, and they should be. I don't care if you had the ability to fight back when being raped, or whether you're unconscious. You're still a victim, you've still been violated, and it was still a violent act against you. And it doesn't matter if you're a man or a woman, nobody deserves to be raped at any time, whether they're conscious or unconscious. And this is one of the many issues that we had as we look at other bills, like SB 54, where when we say that we want to take violent crimes out, then that still allows some of these serious crimes to be part of it. And then when we say we want to get rid of serious crimes, we still have additional problems. The code is all convoluted as to the seriousness in the nature of the types of crimes. So I think redefining some of this makes good sense. I also think that the senator also made sense in this, in looking at it as a whole picture, not just individual. I'll be happy to move the bill today, but Senator Stone, I see that your mic light's on. Would you like to have a question or two?
You were doing very well with your comments. I was going to pretty much mimic what you were saying, that we have a number of crimes that are serious in nature, that are violent as well. I support the redefinition. With any piece of legislation, whether it's a proposition or a bill, there's always unintended consequences, and the unintended consequences here is we're releasing violent criminals back into our communities earlier and where they can recidivate and cause problems. And I just wanted to move the bill if the Vice Chair didn't move the bill, and applaud the author for bringing it forward.
Would you like your bill moved today, or would you like to put it off and take a look at a greater strategy? What was your preference?
That's a tough question, but I'm prepared to work with other authors. I'm prepared to work with the governor's office, because I think we've all realized at every level that there's a problem with the way 57 is currently interpreted in the two penal codes. So I can certainly ask for a continuance if that is what, as we look at some of the other bills, or I can have a vote up or down today and ask for reconsideration, which would give me the same path.
Senator Mitchell.
If I may, I know that the chair is not here, but I would ask that the committee consider holding all of these bills without prejudice, to allow us to have a designated hearing, to have the fuller conversation looking at all of the bills, and again, without prejudice. I don't know procedurally how we do that so the bills aren't negatively impacted by our time frame in terms of the deadline by which a bill has to get out of the House of Origin. And so I would leave that to the committee. But
I don't know that we could do that waiting for the assembly bills because of the timelines.
Okay, so if we look at all of the Senate bills, because I know there are other Senate bills as well. So even if, as a Senate Public Safety Committee, we hold all the Senate bills, and so the Senate can then weigh in terms of our perspective of the multiple Senate bills.
It would be very nice if all our members weren't presenting bills in other committees and that they were here. So this wasn't three members making the choice.
And then there's that.
Yeah, if you get done telling me, you can tell Senator Jones. I think that we have three more bills that are potentially in that group. Because so few members are here, I'm happy to move the motion, or Senator Stone's happy to make the motion, and then we would ask for the reconsideration, and then we'd have the opportunity to include yours with the others. What I'm worried about is that you don't get a vote and that we put it off when your witnesses are here. What is your preference?
I'll take an up or down vote with reconsideration if it does not pass, and then at that time I'd like to ask for the opportunity to again testify, because reconsideration can only be in several cases an up or down vote again, but we'll need to have that discussion. I think it's very important. Yeah.
You'd be looking at a January hearing. That's what I'm being told.
I'm sorry, would you?
If it doesn't pass, you'd be looking at a January hearing. So I just want to make sure you're fully informed.
Right.
Right.
Our final hearing is next week, so assuming nothing would change in a couple days, that you could have, if you get reconsideration, you could hear it in January.
Then I think we should have an up or down vote. In that way, reconsideration, it makes it a 2-year bill. And in the meantime, other things can happen.
Okay. Senator Stone made Senator Stone made the motion, and if we could have a roll call vote, and this is due pass to approves.
Anderson, aye. Bradford? Jackson? No. Jackson, no. Mitchell? Mitchell, no. Stone? Stone, aye. Wiener?
I asked that we keep the rolls open for the other members, and that we note, since the senator won't be here, that she's asked for reconsideration. Thank you.
Thank you.
Senator Parentino, you have a lot before us. Would you like to start?